welcome to Addicted to Murder. This is Courtney, licensed professional counselor with over a decade of experience.
And this is Trisha. And if you got bit by a Katy Poo in New Zealand, you could die.
Oh.
Katy Poo. Sorry.
I imagine that is some sort of insect?
Insect? Did
What?
you say insect?
Insect.
Oh. It's close. It's an arachnid.
Oh.
Do you see that?
Yes, I don't want to look at it because I do not like arachnids.
Well, what does it remind you of?
It looks like a black widow.
Yeah, so it's the black widow's cousin.
Oh.
It's the New Zealand's black widow cousin from the genus Latrectus, but it's an endangered species.
Oh.
Anyhow, it has the same type of venomous bite that can kill you, like we have here with the black widows.
Well, great. Thanks for telling me about more scary, venomous things that I should be scared of.
Well, I don't know if they are like the black widows like being in dark places.
Right.
So we have them here, but I don't see them very often.
Right.
So I'm just saying that's lucky, they're not like the funnel webs or whatever that are underground and then pop out, or like the brown recluses who they say they don't live here, but they frickin' do.
Yes, they do.
They frickin' do, people. Anyhow, so they're not, at least they're I guess I want to say they're like a defensive spider. They're not out there trying to like.
They're not an aggressive spider.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyways. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I know things to look out for the next time I'm in New Zealand.
I know, right? Mm-hmm. When's that?
I don't know.
Didn't you look to see what places your license could transfer to, and New Zealand was one of them?
I did, yes. So if things get worse where we are,
really worse,
that's my backup plan is to try and move to New Zealand because all of my stuff transfers and everywhere needs therapists.
It's true. New Zealand looks beautiful.
Yes.
Never been. And I've also talked to some people from New Zealand when I was in healthcare or health insurance who told me how their system was, and it sounded like a pretty neat thing.
Nice.
Like there was if I'm remembering correctly, and this was years ago, but the couple I talked to said that you could take the government insurance, but the caveat was that you couldn't sue for malpractice if something went awry, or you could do your own private insurance, right? But, part of the reason our healthcare costs are so high in the United States is the malpractice claims.
Right.
So that's sort of like the trade-off. Like you trust that your providers are going to do the best that they can, and accidents or unforeseen things happen in medicine. And negligence too. I mean, that is possible,
right.
But that's like the trade-off. So they can lower their healthcare costs by not having their providers have to have such high malpractice insurance because they're not worried about getting sued. So that was something I remember from years ago, and my memory is shot. So that could totally be wrong. But if it's not wrong, I think it's a cool idea that I invented in my sleep. If we have any New Zealand listeners who want to say, you're right, you're wrong, let us know.
Right. Tell us how to move there.
Yeah.
What do I need to do?
Right. So we're back with a Courtney case today.
Yes. But first I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. So Trisha, what is a TV show that you didn't expect to like, but that you have watched and liked?
Landman.
Oh, okay.
Have you watched that?
No.
So I was like, oh, big deal, oil rigs and stuff like that. Like I thought this was going to be so boring. I watched it because it has Billy Bob Thornton in it. And I really like Billy Bob Thornton. But it is an amazing show. And I've learned so much watching it.
About oil?
Yeah, about how oil is procured and, alternatives to oil and why they work, sometimes why they don't. How the money is made, how it works with the guy. I mean, it's a show, right?
Right. It's fictionalized,
right.
Of course.
But, they say that art mimics life and vice versa. So, I don't know. But it's a really great show. I recommend it for anyone.
All right.
It's not a comedy, but there are some funny parts. How about you?
I recently watched Sirens.
Oh, I watched that.
And at first, like,
Sorry, let me just
just
turn
the
my phone off.
description, like, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like. I was like, ooh, like rich people, and there seemed to be this like weird supernatural element, like in the ads for it. But then I actually watched it, and it was funny and endearing, and had some good twists in it. So I was pleasantly surprised.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I watched that show because it has Dennis from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in it.
Oh, okay.
He's what was his character? Because you don't watch Sunny, right?
No.
It's such a funny show, but it is not for everybody. I will tell. So it's Glenn Howerton is his name. He was like the guy that she was the hotel guest or the rich guy that the main gal was dating, that they were going to get like married or whatever, and then she changed her mind on him.
Oh, okay.
Ethan Corbin the third.
Yes.
Yes, that's Glenn Howerton. Anyways, he's from Sunny.
Got it.
That's why I watched it, and then I ended up very much enjoying it as well.
Right. You know, Julianne Moore is great, and Kevin Bacon is great.
Yeah, I know. You know, I like the bakes.
Yeah. So, highly recommend for those of you if you're bored and looking for something to watch.
I agree with Courtney on her pick as well. So again, this is Courtney's show today. So she's going to be doing the majority of the stuff. I did not read this book. I started it, but I didn't finish it. And it's really in her wheelhouse because it's a very psychological case.
It is. It's not our typical serial killer. You might find that when I tend to do one, it's usually not your typical serial killer. But it's really interesting. I'm going to hold off on sharing well, I guess you'll see the name when we post this. So I was going to hold off on saying like the moniker of our killer this week. But we are going to talk about Tanya Reid, aka Munchausen Mom. So Tanya Thaxton was her maiden name, was born on October 19th, 1957 in Dumas, Texas. Tanya was the youngest of 4 daughters for parents John and Wanda Thaxton. John worked in a factory, and then eventually he owned a medical supply business. And Wanda stayed home with the children until they were grown. It is noted that even from birth, how different Tanya looked from her sisters. She had tan skin and dark eyes, and as a result, one of her uncles nicknamed her Tonto, and that became just kind of her nickname all throughout childhood and growing up within her family. Tanya was especially close to her eldest sister, Beverly Kay, who often took care of her like she was her own little baby doll.
Courtney, was there any reason to suspect that she was not her father's child?
No, there was never any suspicion of like infidelity, just the genetic lottery. Tanya's sisters looked more like their mother, who was like slender with blonde hair and fair skin, while Tanya looked more like her father with dark features and like a thicker build. She would kind of struggle with her weight on and off.
Got it. So, I don't want to say she was the ugly duckling,
but kind of, yeah. She was the misfit a little bit.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So when Tanya was in preschool, her mother became gravely ill with spinal meningitis and was bedridden and hospitalized for nearly a year. Some of Tanya's earliest memories were of visiting her mother in the hospital, including staying in the same hospital room with her mom when she had a cyst removed from her arm. Tanya suffered from a series of freak accidents as a child, including stubbing her toe on a toothpick, which resulted in a nasty infection, and smashing her arm through a window and severing an artery that required extensive stitches. And then when she was 14, Tanya experienced 2 fainting spells that resulted in visits to the hospital, but there was no cause ever determined.
Well, with such a big family, I assume that dad was working a lot, and with the mom in the hospital for what you said, like a year. Do you think her sisters were taking care of her, and maybe that's why she was having these kind of significant injuries, or do you have other thoughts?
So Tanya's eldest sister was 8 years older than her, and she was often kind of responsible for caring for her younger siblings while dad was working. But there's not really an indication that she was like not good at watching them, or that like Tanya was often unsupervised. The family really described Tanya as having, quote, like a rain cloud following her around and just having really terrible
man.
luck.
So
She's just one of those kids.
Yeah. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So Tanya was described as shy and reserved as a child, with few friends and difficulty forming close relationships with peers. John and Wanda were strict parents, and they expected obedience and high achievement from their children. Tanya and her sisters were all good students and did their best to meet expectations. If they broke a rule or, came home 5 minutes past curfew, they would get grounded for long periods of time, like up to 6 weeks for being 5 minutes late. They weren't allowed to date, and sometimes their parents would randomly show up at the movies or at the school dance to make sure that the girls were where they said they would be. Tanya, being the youngest, got away with a little bit more than her sisters had, and enjoyed going out driving with her best friend, drinking sodas, and listening to rock music, which was not allowed at her house.
Do you think that it's a general rule of thumb? I know we're not parents, so it's hard to say how to discipline your child, but that 6 weeks of grounding for being 5 minutes late might be a little overkill?
Yes. Typically, consequences work best when they are immediate and commensurate with the infraction, right? So 5 minutes late, maybe is a day.
Yeah, I agree.
So from a young age, Tanya expressed wanting to be a mother, and she was very nurturing. She would rescue and nurse baby birds and other small animals back to health. She volunteered as a candy striper at the local hospital as a teenager. Tanya also babysat for a neighborhood family, and when she was 17, she was watching 4-month-old Scotty Simmons when he started to have trouble breathing. She called her mom for advice, but then called an ambulance when he stopped breathing entirely. He was able to be resuscitated, but continued to have seizures and motor delays throughout his childhood. A month later, Tanya received the Good Neighbor Award from the Ladies' Chamber of Commerce. After high school, Tanya studied to become a licensed vocational nurse, with plans to return to college to become a registered nurse someday.
So were there any suspicions? It sounds like not, since she got an award, but, this happened while in her care.
So at the time, there wasn't anything suspicious about it. Little Scotty did have legitimate medical concerns that were found and diagnosed at the hospital after this event that would have been the cause for him to stop breathing. Later, however, this event was thought to be kind of like the catalyst for some of Tanya's future behaviors, which we'll learn more about.
I'm just realizing that just now. She gets an award.
Right.
For saving
this
little
baby.
Yep.
Who had stopped breathing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so keep that in your mind as we
go along.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So in 1975, when Tanya was 18, Jim Reid moved into the neighborhood. He was older than Tanya and was working his way up the ladder at a meat distribution company. He met John and Wanda first, befriending them, and eventually that year he came to the Thaxton family holidays for Christmas and Thanksgiving because he didn't have anyone else in town. He expressed romantic interest in Tanya, who didn't like him initially because, quote, "I thought he was kind of cold, and he smoked, and I didn't. Yuck," end quote. But over time, they started dating and got engaged 6 months later. Tanya thought about calling off the engagement, but when Jim surprised her with brand new set of furniture that she had liked, they'd gone to a store and they looked around and she's like, "This is the one I like," and so he bought it for her.
It's a big gift.
Yes. She decided to go through with the wedding because it showed that he cared and was listening, right? But the marriage was not easy, and the two would often argue about money and Tanya's spending. And Tanya would have big emotional reactions, and Jim would withdraw and pretend that nothing really had happened.
So you just made a quote in this, and I just want to point out really quick the source of this book, or the source.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just do that really quick because I might forget. Cruel Deception by Gregg Olsen.
Yes, really great book. That's where the vast majority of this information comes from. Highly recommended.
Got it. So, Courtney, we don't know a whole lot about Tanya's childhood. I mean, just a little bit about her being the youngest and whatever, but do you think there are any mental health diagnoses you want to discuss currently at this time?
There was no real indication of a diagnosable mental health condition in Tanya's childhood. She was awkward and people-pleasing and emotionally immature, and she cared a lot about what others thought of her, and like keeping up appearances was important, but nothing really that like would rise to clinical levels.
Okay.
So Tanya worked as an LVN at Dumas Memorial Hospital and took RN classes at the local university in Amarillo until abruptly in January 1979 she quit her job and school and started working at the meat factory where Jim was the manager. Tanya became pregnant the next year, and in October 1980, Carolyn was born, 2 weeks after her due date. Tanya stayed home to raise her daughter. In 1981, Jim was transferred to the Chicago office, and the family moved to Woodbridge, just outside the city, and Tanya took a part-time nursing job at a local hospital.
Do you know any reason why she would have changed careers so abruptly?
The only explanation kind of presented in the book was money.
Okay.
I mean, the job paid a lot more than her nursing job.
Okay.
And Tanya wanted the finer things in life and wanted to start a family.
Okay.
So everyone thought it was really odd, and there wasn't really a reason that she ever gave, but that's the one that was presented.
Consensus. Okay.
Yeah. So in the summer of 1982, Tanya excitedly told her husband and friends that she was pregnant again, coincidentally at the same time as one of her friends. But a few weeks later, she miscarried, and her friends had doubts that the pregnancy had been real at all. Not long after, Tanya really did find herself pregnant. On May 17, 1983, Tanya rushed to the hospital, claiming that she couldn't find the baby's heartbeat, but eventually delivered a healthy baby girl named Morgan. Tanya was a nervous mother with baby Morgan, consulting the pediatrician about every rash and sign of colic. Despite being given a clean bill of health, Tanya was convinced that something was wrong with her daughter, and she asked her friends for the name of a pediatrician to get second opinions.
I got two questions here. One that just came to my mind. What do you think was the difference between first baby and second baby? Because normally with the second baby, you're like less concerned, right?
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts as to why is this baby why is she so freaked out over everything when she wasn't with her first?
Right. I think a big part of it is that with her first baby, she was still in Texas where her family was. She had her parents and her sisters and a support system around her, which helped her. And then up in Woodbridge, she didn't have that yet.
Okay.
So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And then just kind of the scare that she had about the heartbeat, I think, put that anxiety into her mind.
Okay. Well, and then secondly, do you think Tanya faked the presidency? Nothing's on my mind right now. Do you think that Tanya faked her pregnancy? Like, and if she did, was it like to get attention since her friends were also pregnant? Like, she didn't want to be left out?
So it turns out that her friend's positive pregnancy test was actually a false positive. And so she also was not pregnant. I do think that this fake pregnancy was a maladaptive attempt at trying to be included and part of the group. But then when her friend ended up not being pregnant, she had to find a way to also fit in with that result. She really was very lonely and desperate to be part of the group.
Okay. That's interesting.
It is interesting, yeah. And so part of the reason why I also believe that it was potentially fake was the way that she described the miscarriage to Jim and to her friends didn't fit with how miscarriages actually go. Like there was no intense bleeding or hospital visits or
cramping.
Right, exactly. So
Okay.
yeah, just kind of an interesting thing. Now, that summer, Jim was called away on an extended business trip, leaving Tanya home with the two young kids, Carolyn and Morgan, and she was not happy about it. She wanted to go with him. On August 8th, 1983, Tanya called an ambulance, saying that she had found 2-month-old Morgan not breathing, laying motionless and turning blue. Tanya gave mouth to mouth, and Morgan started breathing again before the paramedics got there. Tests at the hospital were all normal, and the incident was deemed a SIDS near miss, or sudden infant death syndrome near miss. But 2 weeks later, it happened again. And again a few weeks after that. By December 4th, Morgan had experienced 10 of these episodes where she stopped breathing and had to be resuscitated by her mother. And she'd been examined and tested for everything under the sun at, the local hospital, at the specialized children's hospital, and they'd found nothing. All of these episodes happened to occur in the afternoons when Jim was at work and Tanya was alone with the children. Tanya received an outpouring of support from the medical staff and other wives in the neighborhood for her struggle and her, magical ability to rescue her daughter every time.
Did the book go in to say if her resuscitation was mouth-to-mouth breathing and like CPR, or one or the other, or did it say how she magically made her daughter come back?
It was almost always mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Okay, so she wasn't doing little baby CPR.
She might have been, but that's not what the focus was.
Okay. I'm just like, this is a tiny baby, right? Or wait, how old is she?
Yeah, 2 months.
I'm just like thinking, like, if you had to actually do CPR, I don't know if you've taken the BLS classes, but I've always had to.
I have.
And it's like and it just, I don't know, it just kind of freaks me out. This all seems a little odd to me, but I'm not a pediatrician.
Right. So, needing support from her family, Tanya moved back to Texas with the children. And while there, baby Morgan continued to have breathing episodes, which Tanya reported as being apnea or seizures. She was again evaluated and hospitalized, a total of 9 times, including 4 times while already at the hospital, but being cared for by her mother with no medical staff around. Like, for example, when, staff had left her and she was sitting there, giving the baby a bath, she would have an episode, but never while staff was in the room. No medical staff ever observed the onset of one of these episodes. Morgan was delayed, and she wasn't able to sit up on her own at 9 months old, which is a typical milestone. On February 7th, 1984, Morgan was rushed to the hospital after another episode, but this time, Tanya was not able to save her. She was pronounced dead the next day at only 9 months old.
Well, I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but it's interesting how at the hospital, she was fine when there were the nurses around and everything like that. But these 4 episodes,
right.
I mean, red flag, red flag, red flag. I don't know if they've had those red flags. I don't know.
Right. And remember, so this was the early 80s.
Yeah.
And, we didn't know as much as we know now.
Well, the charting was different.
And the charting was different, right? And if you went to different hospitals, there wasn't an electronic health record. Right. And if you went to talk to one doctor, they didn't necessarily know what the other doctor said.
Right. Well, yeah, and if she's there for an extended period of time, she's there with multiple caregivers. They might not be talking to each other.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was never any, condition specifically that was found to have caused her death in terms of, a genetic condition or something that was causing her to not breathe.
Did they do an autopsy?
They did an autopsy.
Okay.
And
so I'm assuming Tanya allowed it, or maybe it's the same if it's a suspicious infant death.
I think she allowed it, but it was essentially lack of oxygen. Yeah, but without a known cause.
Okay. All right.
So after a period of grieving, Tanya and Carolyn returned to Chicago to be with Jim. Tanya found comfort in the support of her friends. Tanya struggled with how much Jim was working, feeling jealous of any time he was away from her at work or on business trips. And they didn't talk about Morgan very much, despite Tanya's need to talk out all of her emotions. She became pregnant again, And when she was near full term, she confronted Jim about her feelings and desire to have fun and not be left alone all the time. She threatened to leave the marriage and went to stay with her parents in Texas for a week before Jim convinced her to come back to Illinois. On April 7th, 1985, the day after she arrived back in Chicago, Jim found Tanya collapsed on the floor, unresponsive, and called the paramedics. When they arrived, Tanya was roused and stated that she had felt weak and then couldn't remember what happened next until they got there. She declined a trip to the hospital.
Well, do you think she was faking?
I mean, Tanya never admitted to faking, but I find it very suspicious that she was unable to be aroused when it was just Jim there, but she happened to become responsive as soon as the paramedics arrived. And if I was almost 9 months pregnant and suddenly lost consciousness and collapsed, I would definitely want to go to the hospital to make sure that the baby was okay.
Sure.
So that is where we're going to end for today. This is going to be a two-parter, I think. There's a lot more still to come. Trisha, any kind of thoughts or final questions before we end things for today?
No, it's just one of those. So I'm having the hindsight bias right now, right?
Right.
Like looking at this, it's so obvious something weird's going on.
Yes.
And one baby already dead, and I don't, and this other one in it just, it sucks that you can see all of this afterwards because this, not to give anything away, but this could have been a preventable death for this little child,
this little girl. Right. Mm-hmm.
And I get that dad has to be out there making a living and everything, but I also understand like mom doesn't want to be left alone all the time. Like that
Right.
is not you have to have, you know what I'm saying? Like
I do. She was feeling like neglected and abandoned and needed support.
yeah. And I mean, now he's taking like overnight trips and
Right.
She's not with her family and everything like that. I'm not trying to defend her at all. I'm just trying to understand her.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot of red flags, a lot of sad things that have already happened, and I think it's going to continue.
Yes. There'll be more to come.
Yeah. All right, everyone, stay safe, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.